This week on Angelo's Workbench, work continues on the Revell 71 Boss 351 Mustang. We're going to complete all the steps necessary to mount the body, and we're going to get that done. I hope you'll stick around. So I was preparing my parts for the next couple of steps and tracking all of this down, and discovered, much to my dismay, that that little guy right there was missing. C96 was missing from my box. And I searched the parts box, I searched the dehydrator, I searched everywhere, and I couldn't find this part. And I'm like, well, this is why we can't have nice things. But just on a whim, I started searching the floor around my work area, and underneath my workbench, stranger things have never happened, I found it. Now, it is unpainted, which means that it must have fallen off of the workbench when I was de-spruing it before it went to paint, because this would have gotten painted aluminum, as it calls out for. So there it is, and I wanted to share this with you because this will never ever happen again. Typically when I lose a part, it is gone forever. And this room does have carpeting in it. So the carpet monster lives in here. And it takes those parts, those missing parts. But for whatever reason, it must not have been hungry for one of those, because I found it. And this would have, I painted all these parts a couple of weeks ago. So this has been chilling on the floor under my workbench for a couple of weeks. And I just wanted to share that. This will never ever happen again. So, but hey, lucky me, I found it. Now I'm going to paint it, and then we can proceed with our engine bay install. And we're working under the hood now. So the first thing that we're going to do in step 31 is we're going to put this support brace on that we notched out from step 18. And then we're going to put the, I think that's a windshield washer reservoir or a coolant overflow, one or the other. And then we get a couple of horns. The horns are actually directional, 93 and 94. One kind of mounts horizontally back here, and one kind of mounts vertically up here. It's interesting that there's two separate locations for horns in this car. I wouldn't have expected that. It's kind of unusual. And so there we've got our glue in place everywhere we need it. And so now we can just go ahead and rest this in place. It just kind of goes in that space there and then just rests on the tops of the shock towers. There we go. And then we have this horn. That goes right there. Takes a little bit of finagling to get it to go properly. There we go. That kind of looks right. Let's see. Not quite. Gonna get the big eyes out. There we go. And then this one here, based on the notching on the back. Really? It's fighting me a little bit. Just needed a little more glue on there. I didn't put enough on the first try. There we go. And then this guy just kind of goes in there. There we go. Excelente. So those guys are all where they need to be. I think this needs to go up a little more. There it goes. Wasn't quite on the notch. There's like a horizontal bar on the... And there we go. That looks good. And so no decals on that step, but then this next step, we've got the battery, we've got this little blue thing, and we've got the little silver thing, and they all receive decals. But I'm inclined to glue them on first, and then add the decals after. So this guy has a notch, and it looks like he goes basically right on there. There's like a little vertical bar. There we go. That was good. And then we have this guy who goes silver side up, and he has a little notch in the firewall. Again, very positive mounting locations. Like, you don't have to guess where this stuff goes. It really does have a very good system of knowing where each thing goes. I knew that was going to happen. And these parts are small and fiddly. But once you get them in place, that's it. Locked in. And then the battery just kind of goes terminals out. And again, you'll see there is a groove that's made to hold the battery. You don't just guess where the battery goes. Like, oh, it just stays on the firewall like that. No, this has a particular angle, a particular location, and a particular way to be. And it's all included in the mounting. So there we go. So now we're ready for the appropriate decals that go. And the decals we need, there's decal 11 for the top of the battery. Which is right there. Decal 12 for the top of this blue thing, which is yellow. And decal 4 for the front of the silver thing. Some kind of label. Which, again, very awesome little details for under the hood. It's going to make it look excellent. So we'll get the water going here. We'll get all these guys soaking. There's one for the battery. One for the little silver box. And the one for the little blue box. All right. So I'm going to put a little mark fit on top of the battery because there's some texture there that the decal is going to have to suck itself down around. And so there we go. And I painted them silver, those little battery acid ports. Though the decal includes red. But I thought the silver would make the red pop. And I was right. here we go. There we go. Okay, all the decals are applied. Get this out of here. And that takes care of step 32. Moving right along here on this build. And then moving on to step 33. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start building the radiator, getting that all squared away. And then, we're basically done with the engine bay, which is pretty fantastic. And we're going to move on to the tail section, the body, and final assembly before you know it. So come on back. So we're working on the radiator and what they call the slam panel, or what I call a slam panel, which goes in the front of the motor here. So working on the radiator, the shroud, and the top hose. And then there's a couple of decals here. There's a caution fan decal for the top of the radiator shroud. And then there's a decal that is said to go on the radiator hose that says something I can't quite make out, but it's some kind of writing that goes on the hose, just like on the fan belt. There was a like a label that went on the hose, which looks really good. So that should look pretty awesome. So so the first thing we'll do is we'll go ahead and we will glue the radiator. And again, very positive mounting points. You've got two big tabs and two big holes that it mounts up. There's no doubt as to where this radiator goes. So you don't have to wonder if you've got it in the right place. Is it going to slide over? Is it going to line up? There's absolutely no doubt. It will line up with those hoses perfectly. So we'll put the radiator on there. And then we have the radiator shroud. There's a couple little beveled edges that go at the bottom. And again, we'll just put a little dab of glue on each of these little tabs. And set this in. And that's looking pretty awesome. So now we can wait. I'm going to wait and hold off and put the decals on after I get this all squared away, because they will be very they will be very easy to reach, even though this is installed. They will be very easy to reach. So now what we've got is I'm going to have to line up that bottom one as I'm putting the radiator in. So I'm just kind of looking to see what the radiator mounting points are, and it's right here and right here, I think, is where most of my mounting point is going to be. So I'm going to make sure I line up this bottom hose with this radiator at the same time as I'm installing it. So there is it is definitely a little tricky to get the shroud. Oh, there it went. I said it's definitely a little tricky, and it popped right in. So there you have it. And did the hose line up too? Wow. I think the lower radiator hose just like went right in. Can't see it. Having a little trouble seeing down in there. Yeah. The lower hose went right in where it's supposed to be. That's amazing. It literally just popped right in. So now we can go ahead and we can put the upper hose in. So the upper hose has a square end and a round end. The square end goes in the top of the motor, and then the round end goes in the radiator. So I'm just going to put a little drop of glue where it mounts in the radiator. A little drop of glue where it mounts in the motor. There we go. And now we'll just work that in there. There we go. And now I just have to work it into the radiator. There. Wow, that was one of the easier radiator hose installs I've had in my model building career. And now the upper hose is mounted correctly. The lower hose is mounted correctly. Radiator is installed. The slam panel is where it's supposed to be. There's a very positive notch that it drops down into. So you're sure that it's not going to interfere with any of the front parts of the body. And the fan fits everything perfectly. So that, as they say, is that. So now we can get going with our decals. We have a decal for the top of the shroud and a decal for the hose. So we'll go ahead and get this in the water. There we go. And there we go. And after this, after we put these decals on, that will complete step 34. And then we're going to have to start working on like body and final assembly. Like this kit's almost done. I believe there are 53 steps counting all of the exterior decals. Well, 52 and 53 are both exterior decals. So we'll say there's 50 steps, basically. So we're almost there. So let's go ahead and let's get these decals on. And this would need to be readable from when you raise the hood. And that looks great. And we'll get the fan belt decal going here. Maybe I'll be able to read it once it's on the hose. I think it says auto light something. I know that was, oh no, it's Purolator. Maybe. It's hard to tell. Wow, that looks amazing. Doesn't that look great? Impressive with the decals. Decals add that extra little bit. That combined with the excellent parts fit and all of the nice little bolt heads and everything that I touched up, that's really a fantastic looking engine bay. In hindsight, I think I might have wired the engine. I think maybe next time I'll wire the engine. This time, not so much. I'm going to just build it. This is just box stock. That's it. We're not adding anything. My next one, I think I'm going to do the green and black. I think I will wire the engine next time, just for fun. I am kind of curious what goes on top of this thing, though. There hasn't been any call out for anything to mount to that. Nor is there in the rest of the instructions, which is kind of strange. I had thought that maybe the air cleaner mounted up to that, but it doesn't. The air cleaner goes over here and mounts up to something else that attaches to the radiator, to the exhaust header. that just basically stays just like that. So I'm going to have to touch that up. It needs a little bit more paint on the tip of it. It needs to be silver. So I will do that. And that is looking good. Come on back for more. This is kind of interesting. I don't remember ever seeing this. They actually have decals, these little white squares, for the backup lights. I had done them silver already, but I've got white square backup lights for the decals. So, excuse me, white square backup light decals for the backup lights. So we're going to put those in. No reason not to use them, even though I've already done the silver. The white will just, maybe it'll highlight even a little brighter since I've done silver behind them already. They are a little oversized. So after I get them settled in, I will I'll put a little decal setting solution on them. Maybe pop in the dehydrator to settle them down a little bit into the recess where they're supposed to be. A hard time with this one. The first one I got very easily. This one is giving me a hard time, however. There we go. All right, so there it is. That looks pretty good. Pop it in the dehydrator. Let it do its thing in the dehydrator for a few minutes. So I'm installing the taillights now into the taillight panel. And you would think that they would be... I did one off camera just to kind of see what it was like. And you would think that they would be side specific, left and right. But they are, in fact, the same part number 62, for left and for right. So they are... same taillight on both sides. And they actually, I don't know if it's the way I painted it or what, but they actually just kind of pressure fit in really well. I just kind of, the other one I just kind of slid into place, and that's it. And they are mounted. So, but just to be sure, I'm going to take just a little bit of my Mod Podge. As soon as I find it, is right here. And from the back, I'm going to put just a little bit of Mod Podge around the, not a lot of Mod Podge, just a little tiny bit on the seam between the light and the tail panel. And Mod Podge is great because it cures perfectly clear. And if you get it on something that you don't want it on, you can just rub it off. And even if it cures, it comes off with just water. So there. And now it's kind of got a little glue on it, and it'll just be held in place ever so nicely. Neatly, cleanly, with no hassle. And that is done. And I will use this same stuff on all the glass, the turn signals, the headlights. Mod Podge is my go-to for gluing in stuff. And it cures fairly quickly. You give it like an hour, and it's fine and ready to go. So the next part of this taillight panel is installing it into the body. They want you to paint the inside black, which I've already done. They want you to open the holes for the spoiler, which I've already done. And then on to step 37 here, which is installing the rear glass and this taillight panel. So I'm going to see how this goes in here. What it mounts to. There isn't, you know, this kit has had a positive mounting point for just about everything. But this, it kind of is a little bit wonky. It doesn't, there isn't a truly positive mounting point for this. There's a little bit of a lip there. And I'm assuming that that's where it wants to go. But it is kind of fighting me a little on going on that lip. And I'm having a hard time getting it level. So that looks about right. Yeah, I guess that's about it. So I'll go ahead and give that a shot with some glue. I'm trying to decide how I want to do this. I don't want to get glue all over this. And I don't want to have a mess. You know what? I'm going to use the Mod Podge. Because I'm not 100% sure on the mounting location. And I don't want to use the extra thin because I think it'll have a tendency to go too far where I don't want it and come down into the silver. And I don't want to use the regular Faller glue for the same reason. Whereas if the Mod Podge bleeds a little bit down, you won't even see it. It will cure invisible. And then if it does become any kind of problem or visible, a little bit of water just wipes it away. There we go. It's interesting that all the parts thus far have had super duper positive mounting points. And then for something important like this tail panel, they kind of leave it a little bit up in the air. Well, the Mod Podge was a good idea. And I think I nailed it. Good. Now I'm going to just go in with a little bit more Mod Podge from the top. It's hard to get the Mod Podge up there because you don't have a good angle to work from. There we go. All right. So we'll just let that cure. But I need to let it cure in kind of a funky position. I gotta figure out how I'm going to let gravity do my work for me and not have this come in contact with the workbench. The workbench might force it upright. But I want gravity to do its thing. Pull it down. Just like that. There it is. So let me just check it and make sure that it's still in the right position. And it is. That looks really good. I just got a whole bunch of Mod Podge on my finger. And there. So we're just going to let that cure for a good hour. And then we'll come back, we'll put those back windows in. And then our next step will be the remaining of the glass. And then it's mount the interior, mount the chassis time. This is moving forward very quickly. So come on back for more. So I have the glass in position here. And I've got the Mod Podge here ready to go. And so what I'm doing is I'm just going to put a little tiny bit on this big bottom section here that is going to hold the glass. And I don't need a ton of it. I just need a little bit. I want it to hold it in place. And then I'm going to do the same thing with this front window that I did with the back window. I'm going to just kind of put a little bit of Mod Podge around the edge while the glass is already in place. So I'm just going to kind of pop that in place just like that. And we need to just kind of set it there. And there it is. And so that glass is in place and it's where it's going to go. So again, I'll come over here to the edge and I'll just put a little bit of Mod Podge in, let the capillary action suck the glue between the glass and the plastic. I talk about it like it's real glass, basically between the two layers of plastic, technically. There we go. And then I have another little section here. And the glass, I actually just noticed, is not all the way up. Needs to be slid up a little bit. There we go. And again, I'm not going to go all the way around this window. I'm just going to hit the corners. There we go. And there we go. We have, and the glass is still down. That's interesting. There. And I might have a little cleanup with a Q-tip down here after. But that's okay, it's Mod Podge. It cleans up real well. And then what I might do next is I might just stick this in the dehydrator. There we go. And let the dehydrator cure all this Mod Podge up real quick. In the dehydrator, the Mod Podge cures in about 10 minutes. Like most water-based products, it cures real fast. And then we'll see what areas need to be cleaned up, what areas don't. The glass is fully seated where it's supposed to be. So all the windows are set. So now don't just set this in a dehydrator just like this, because the racks on the dehydrator will actually mar the paint. So take your microfiber with you and put a little microfiber under the roof and then put it in the dehydrator. So I'm going to go pop this in the dehydrator, let it cure, and then we'll come back. Okay, fresh from the dehydrator. This is ready to go. The glass is looking good to me. And so now we have a relatively big moment in the build of this kit, and that is the installation of the interior and then the mating of the chassis. And we're going to get our first glimpse of what this is going to look like. So there are a couple of little tabs here that I'm just going to put a little dab of glue on. There we go. And these make contact with these two. You didn't see that because it was off camera. There's the two little dabs. And these make contact with these two little points here. And then that's really the only glue points for the interior, I believe. So we'll just kind of drop this in and get those on those two little points, because otherwise I suspect the interior won't mount correctly. the chassis won't mount correctly without the interior pushed in all the way. So there you have it. So that, whoa, that looks really good. I like it. All right, so now that is in. Now they also mention placing a bead of glue here and a bead of glue here for the firewall to make contact with. And they tell you that right here, they got the little red lines. So that's where they want you to glue. So I see no reason not to follow the instructions. So I ordinarily wouldn't glue this. However, since they're calling for it, they must know something that I don't. And I don't profess to be smarter than kit engineers at Revell. So I will run a little bead of glue down there. And then they don't have like a direction. So I think it basically is just going to drop in. I'll plop the rear end in a little bit and then just do a little spread with the body. And then get the chassis in and going. And then it's basically going to just be just a little bit of a spread. And oh, look at that. It goes right in like nothing. Wow. Okay. It appears to be in place. Well, that was ridiculously easy and not very dramatic at all. And that is in contact. The firewall is in contact. And there is our body is mounted. And oh, the ride height looks stellar. I'm good with that ride height. I don't need to do any adjustments of ride height. And it's fairly consistent side to side. That's impressive. Everything looks straight. Wow. Oh, what a fantastic look. And the overspray is just perfect on the underside. That came out really well. And then there is some sections that go on the back here. I believe. I don't want to get too excited yet because I've got, I mean, everything looks exactly the way it's supposed to. So I can't imagine that this isn't supposed to be like that. So I'm sure something is going to cover that. But we'll see. So I'm going to let this cure. And this doesn't need any weight or anything. The body is in contact with the interior engine compartment the way it's supposed to be. And it just fits and it just looks excellent. So I'm going to leave that be, let that cure for a little while, and we will come back. And I was curious, so I went and looked at the instructions for the back section. And of course, and I can't believe I forgot about it, I painted it. This is going to go in here and get glued, so that will cover that back section. So we'll let that cure, and we'll be back. That's going to wrap up video number 9 in the Revell 71 Boss 351 Mustang video series. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe. Check me out on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, all under the name Angelo's Workbench. And most importantly, don't forget to come on back next week for video number 10, when we will continue the preparations for final assembly. We'll get to work on the front end and move this kit toward completion. I'll see you next week.